Hello and welcome to True North EV. We're here today with Dave from Ontario, who's going to talk about his experience with an EV. Hope you enjoy. Hello, Dave, and welcome to True North EV.
Hi, James. How you doing?
Not too bad, and yourself?
Good, thanks.
Let's just get started right off the hop. What was the first electric vehicle you wanted, and why?
The first electric vehicle I wanted, I was always a big fan, and still am of the Tesla Model S.
Awesome. Just for the looks, speed,
This
performance.
the look, the speed. They're a really nice looking four door family sedan. I guess we'll call it. Let's call it maybe a little more sportier sedan, shall we say? And
Yep.
with lots of room. The only thing I did find after sitting in my first one, I've never driven one, but I sat in one at the auto show a couple years ago. At 6'4", the Model S, the pillars are in the roof line are right in the way of your head. So at my height, so it's a beautiful car. It just not for me anymore now.
See, that's the nice things about being a little
Yeah.
shorter. I don't have to worry about. uh, and so, what EV do you got right now then?
I've got a 2019 Hyundai Kona.
Okay, and is that the preferred or
That would be the
ultimate?
ultimate with the 64 kilowatt battery.
Awesome. Um, how do you like the heads-up display,
I
or do you
It's
use
the
it?
first car I've ever owned with it. I've a buddy of mine had a was a mid '90s at the time old Pontiac Grand Prix that had a heads up
Yeah.
display in it, and that was really neat and interesting. Uh, the Kona one is, for like I say, it's the first car I've ever owned. Heads up technology has been around forever. I think it's a great idea. There's no more looking down for speedometers. Your GPS nav direction is up there a little bit. Certain radio station information is there. It's great.
Okay, yeah, because I know I drove the ultimate when we were looking at it, and it was just I couldn't justify the extra expense
Yep.
for it for what I was looking for, right? So you're located in
Yeah,
Ontario,
I'm in
correct?
Belleville, a little medium-sized city about halfway along the north side of Lake Ontario between Kingston and Toronto.
Okay, so you at least have a sort of
Oh yeah,
winter.
we have some serious winter here.
uh, what kind of range do you are you finding you're getting with your Kona in summer and winter
I've
type
only had
deal?
it since December, um,
Oh, okay,
so yeah, I
so
haven't had a chance to.
your
I'm a
winter
winter
range.
range, and it does have factory Hyundai winter tires on it, which are just a standard heavy-duty steel rim with a spec tire. There's nothing EV on the tire or the rim. So from everybody I've talked to, they say that does beat the range down on them. I
Yeah.
run the 401, so it's all highway every day around 112, 114 kilometers an hour, and I pull average across the winter since December. I've seen about 270-kilometer range on it.
That's
Now,
not bad.
I've seen worse. We had a couple
Uh,
days that were into the minus 20, 22 range, and the biggest thing there is, of course, trying to keep comfortably warm for the driver, and that really beat the range down. The worst I saw, I think, was I had one day I was down about 212 kilometers range on it.
and is that at 80% or 100?
That was 100% charge. So I've got a
Okay.
level 2 charger in my garage at home, so I take it back to 100% every day.
Oh, okay. Um, so why did you choose the Kona? Was it mostly just the headroom then?
No, you know what? I'll back up and give you a little bit of story. Up until
Yeah.
the middle of or the end of November, I had a 2016 Dodge Dart, little four door, not a sports car, medium compact, whatever they want to call them. Beautiful car, loaded
Yeah.
to the hilt, had everything in it I wanted, comfortable to drive. I got hit by a chunk of flying aluminum on the highway coming home from work one day, end of November, and it wrote the car off. I was okay, but it punched holes in the fire. Yeah,
Which
it
is
punched
good.
holes in firewall. Did like $40,000 damage to
Wow.
the car. Yeah, just destroyed the car. So when I was looking, actually, I was looking for. My dad has a Chevy Volt, and I thought for the amount of highway driving I do, the Volt would be maybe the better way to go. However, 2019 was the last year for the Volt, and there was none to be had anywhere new. When I'm looking the second week of December, by the time insurance kindly figured out what they were doing for me, and I had been looking at the Konas. I kind of caught an article on it back last fall and was watching them thinking, you know what? That would be my good car 3 years from now. I think when it was time to replace the Dart, things kind of bumped up a little quick. And I was looking for at a couple used Volts, but they were going really quick. And I happened to pull into my local Hyundai dealer. I was actually looking at, they had a used Veloster. I was looking at, okay, you know what? I'm gonna. I had completely given up on any thought of EV because it was just way too short notice to make anything happen. And they had a brand new Kona sitting in their showroom. And I asked the guy, I said, can we look at it? And he says, yeah. He says, it's sold. It's a dealer transfer. I thought, okay, no problem. So this is like a Saturday afternoon, I think. So I'm looking at it and talking, and he says, well, come on, let's take it for a drive. It's got to be, we got to pull it out and run it up and get it charged and everything so it can be delivered on Monday. I said, okay. So we took it out for a drive. I said, this is really nice. I really like this. And I asked him, I said, so what would it take to get one? He says, well, 2020s are an 8 months lead time right now. And it's like, well, that's no good for me. So we hemmed and hawed, and I looked at the used Veloster, and before they could get the key, the sales manager came out, looked at me, and he says, do you want the Kona? I said, well, what do you mean it's sold? He says, nothing is sold until Monday, he says. This is a weekend. Business like that doesn't happen on the weekend. He said, if you want that, you give me a down payment right now, you can have it. And, well, that's how I ended up with a Kona. So now, unfortunately, there was somebody in Toronto, I think, that had it picked out. They wanted it, and it was part of an inter-dealer transfer. And I hope Karma doesn't come back and ever get me on that one. But
yeah, because I know I got a Kona Preferred that I ordered April 30th, and I didn't get till September. So it's for you to get one right away. I
literally walked into my Hyundai dealer. I think it was like the 11th of December, and took it home the 18th of December. It was like a couple days later after financing is all worked out and all their dealer prep stuff and so on. But yeah, that was it.
So had you driven any electrics before the Kona? I had driven
my dad's Volt a little bit, and one of the guys I work with, he bought a Volt as well this year. Actually, no, I guess his is 18, same as my dad's. So I had driven it as well. But as far as that, and beyond like a golf cart, no, that's the only EV I've ever driven. So,
which the Kona is a little different than the golf cart.
Yeah. So I mean, I am an electrician in my real life, so I understand. I've got a good understanding of the electrical and how things work and how EVs are much, they're the way, let's call it, I'm not going to say the complete way of the future, but they're absolutely the direction the world needs to be pointing, shall we say. So I wasn't afraid of it. How's that sound when we started looking at EVs?
Yeah. And did you find that you had to change any of your driving habits going from a gas to an electric? I have
changed my driving habits greatly. Only, well, I guess I can admit to it later. Prove to me I speed. I have slowed down. I don't know where you're based out of, but if anybody knows anything about driving in Ontario, we have the 401, which is the busiest highway in North America. It's posted speed limit's 100 kilometers an hour. Everybody's doing at least 120 for the most part. So I would.
Yeah, if you're doing 100 on there, you're a hazard
so
for the road.
I was normally running 118, 119, and you could pretty much stay in the fast lane and not be in anybody's way. With the Kona, I found that speed. We took it to my in-laws in Cornwall for Christmas, and I tried running 118 in the 401, and the battery life disappears very quickly at that speed. So I have found I've slowed down to about 110 to 111, and then you end up more in the right lane where you're supposed to be, I guess, on the highway anyways. And occasionally a few more cars pass you, but the range, I find just that 8 or 9 kilometer an hour slowdown greatly increases the range. I bet you there's a 25% difference in the range by slowing down that little bit.
And do you then drive in eco, normal, or
drive in eco all the time. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yep.
I have it set up in normal mode for when my wife needs it, just because the regen braking is set a little lower, and it's not as aggressive that way for her. And I put it in sport mode once in a while just for the giggle factor. I mean, I don't know what it does, but I haven't actually got into reading what it does, but sport mode does feel like they really open up a lot of extras for you.
It's actually apparently only the torque that changes between the three.
I can believe that, because you can feel there is a lot more off the line with it. So,
yeah, and going for the speeding, I haven't gotten up to full speed with mine. I had a coworker drive mine for the first time, and so it's been up to
Oh, really?
160.
Okay. I think I've seen 130 once. Just you give it a quick shot, and I guess that's the other thing you have to learn when you get out and to pass somebody. There is no hesitation of waiting for the transmission to downshift and waiting for the engine to build power. It's just you put your foot on the pedal and it's gone. So I think that's probably how those speeds kind of come up real quick when you're not ready for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no noise. You don't hear the
Nope,
revving of the
just a
engine
little
or
bit of wind
anything.
going
So
past the.
you look down and
Yeah,
it's all of a sudden, oh,
exactly.
that. Um, what would you say the longest trip you've taken in your Kona is? I know you've just had it for a
Yeah,
little
well, I
while
drive
now,
every day
but
300 kilometers round trip for work. So
oh, okay.
it's 150 each way. So I get to work with no problem. I until Petro Canada starting charging for their chargers, I was just stopping at the local one and juicing up there. But the longest so far, like I said, we went to Cornwall at Christmas time, which is about, I think it's 240K each way. So
Okay. And no issues getting there, or did you
we
stop
stopped
at a
just because, like I
charger?
said, I was running 120 because it was the first real trip we made. I
Yeah.
stopped in Brockville. It's about three quarters of the way, uh, about three quarters of the distance. In Brockville, they've got a Petro Canada fast charger, so we stopped there. I topped up, had lunch, went on to Cornwall. Charged up. There's a local level 3 or whatever, they're 50 kilowatt that I charged up before we left, and then we came straight home with no problem because I said, okay, maybe I better slow down a little bit and see what happens.
And so do you like to normally, I know with me and my Kona, I basically have it set to 17 for the temperature. So I have no issue with range for temperature wise. But do you normally run it warmer
Must be
or?
a bit of an age difference between us. I mean, I'm 47. I can't handle 17. I even with the electric seat maxed out, my feet get too cold. I run it right around 19 to 20, and I find that's
Okay.
on the driver's side only mode. I find that's right at the limit of what I can
Yeah.
physically handle. If it was a shorter trip, or you're only 15, 20 minutes, maybe I could take it, but an hour and a half is what it takes me normally in the morning to get to work. An hour and a half sitting there in 17-degree temperature like that, the body just can't take it very well, I find. So
Uh, true enough. And that's
yeah,
with me in the vehicle. When my wife's in the vehicle, the heat definitely
yeah.
gets put
So
up. Um, uh, and so you're a newer Kona owner. What would you say is the worst part of your Kona? The feature or item that you really
uh,
don't like?
um, the worst one, I guess, is really right now is and I've got to make an appointment to the dealer to get it looked at once this Corona or COVID-19 thing is over, is I've got the rear end brake clunk like everybody reports online. Um,
Yeah.
and it looks like there is a semi fix out there. I wish Hyundai would just step up and make it a recall. Um, my dealership seems to be really EV friendly, so I'm hoping that I can just show them the stuff that people have posted in the Facebook group, and they'll just correct the brake issue. Um, Other than that, that's only the real big one I've seen. I guess the other thing is I don't know if you've got the heated and ventilated seats as well.
I have the heated seats. They're cloth
Okay,
instead of
so
your leather. And so it's just
the
heated
leather's
and not
perforated. They
ventilated.
look like a spaghetti strainer almost. And if I eat or McDonald's French fries, you get a little bit of salt in your finger, stuff floats around. All that stuff sits in all the little perforated holes in the seat, so it always looks like your seat has got stuff on it. And because it's a gray color seat, anything shows right up on it. So you're out there with a vacuum cleaner and a little pick trying to pop this stuff out of these little perforated holes sometimes. That can be a bit of annoyance, but
Yeah. I know my one issue with the longer drives is the plastic on the center console. With you being a taller guy, are you resting your knee on the console and finding it any
no, I don't
annoyance?
seem to
Or
find an issue on that. I know, and it's typical. My Dart was no different. There is an oddball angle position for your arm, for your left arm, I guess, trying to find a spot to have it rest comfortably. But other than that, no, I seem to be okay with that one.
okay, because I've actually made up a little thing for my knee to rest on, just for that hard plastic. What would you say is probably the best feature of your Kona?
Well, the best feature, and that's a tribute to any electric vehicle, is the heater. I mean, you get up in the morning, it's minus 15, minus 20. You've got heat in 90 seconds. And I mean, I don't mean like a little bit of heat. You got real hard heat coming at you. So that's probably, and of course, I mean, they get up and go. I mean, you get this little mini crossover SUV type thing sitting at a red light, and doesn't matter what comes up next to you. The first 200 feet off that line, there isn't a car out there that's going to touch you. So, but I guess this kind of maybe falls back to the one of the dislikes. I kind of wish it was all-wheel drive, because I do find it's really easy to make the front wheels turn, and even at 50 kilometers an hour to shove the pedal to the floor, you can make the traction control grab the wheels from spinning. So I think if it was all-wheel drive, that, and maybe even getting into a dual motor system like Tesla does with theirs, but I think that would help the some of the handling and performance a little better, just to control the power.
Well, I think even if they would have just switched to a rear motor or rear wheel drive, it would have helped out a lot with that torque steer that goes on.
I don't find much torque steer. I just find that it can't keep the wheels from spinning. How's that? So maybe once I get the summer tires on and they get rid of the winters, might be different, but.
Yeah. Well, if you drive anything like me, you'll find that torque steer when it dries up. So you said your dealership seems to be pretty EV friendly. What has your sales and dealer service experience been with them? They seem pretty knowledgeable.
I haven't had to deal with them much. I mean, like I said, I've only had it since December. Now it does have, because I drive so much, it does have almost 17,000 K on it. It only had 900 on it or 750 on it when I bought it. So I've put over 15,000 kilometers plus on it. They did make the mistake and call me here a couple of weeks ago telling me that I was due for an oil change. I kind of laughed a little bit. It wasn't the regular service, their EV service guy, but so he did apologize and laughed at his mistake and realized what he had done. The dealership itself, they are really good. The sales reps have all had proper extra Hyundai training on them. They got 2 mechanics that specialize in. They've had the EV training specifically, so it seems like that they've embraced it quite well.
And have you had any warranty issues or anything
knock on wood, not
with
yet,
it? No. Okay. So what have you found is so I guess the heat is probably the best part in the winter. Any real big struggles in the winter with switching from the gas to electric?
No, like I said, when I bought it, I was pretty much prepared that it wasn't going to give me a full round trip to a charge. And thankfully, and the big reason that even allowed me to look at it was the fact that Petro-Canada's built their electric highway, I guess we'll call it, or what do they call it, where they put a charging station in, which is about a halfway home on my trip home, which works well. Because if you look at the maps, there's about a 75 kilometer stretch where there's no level 3 chargers at all on my drive home, and it's the last 75 kilometers, of course, too. There is a small level 2 that's available certain hours of the day. So if it wasn't for that Petro-Canada charger, I probably would have never even been able to look at a full electric, I think, at this point in life.
Okay. And now, I know you've had your Kona for a short term, but have you helped sway anybody else over to a full electric with your dad having the Volt and all that?
One guy I work with who's got the Volt as well. He's bound bet he's going full electric on his next car, which is a couple years away for him. He's getting to the point where he wants a new car every 3 or 4 years. So he figures it'll be, unless somebody else comes up with something better in the next couple of years, that'll probably be the direction he's looking. And there's another guy I work with who's he's a big diesel truck guy, big power performance guy. And, he's your typical anti-EV kind of guy. And I let him take it for a drive one day, and he was very surprised on what it can do and how it behaves. So I don't know if I've converted him, but I've made him realize that it's not a golf cart. How shall we say?
Yeah, I know talking with a couple of truck guys, the Cybertruck has actually been one that is actually the first electric that they've kind of been curious about. It's ugly, but it's got all that nice diesel performance and
I'm
torque
not
that
sure
they
if they're
like.
actually going to build the Cybertruck that looks like that. I'm still playing on the game that this is Elon Musk and a big marketing ploy where he's just trying to drum the hype and get people spun right up, and then he'll come out with something that looks semi-similar but is kind of more styled in a more realistic look. Not like my son, I've got a 22-year-old son, and he looked at it and he says, "That's Dad, that's the Warthog from Halo." So,
Yes, it
so
is. um, well, I hope they make it because I know I work for a company that I drive a truck all day and all the little
yes,
plastic pieces on it. Doesn't like the minus
I
30, minus
I
40
can
weather
believe
we
that.
get here in
Yes, actually, I
Winnipeg.
got a friend of mine who lives in Portage. He's got a Model S, and he's quite happy with it. He drove it home from
Okay.
2 years ago. Him and his wife brought it home from Christmas to London, Ontario, which is I don't know, it's like 2,000 k. So they went south into the U.S. and caught a couple superchargers, and he said he had no problem whatsoever driving it that far at Christmas time.
So, yeah, and it's it's nice to have all the little
Yes,
superchargers, and that's what Tesla gets right. It's all the superchargers that the
yeah,
others are
yeah,
playing
they've got
catch
it
up on,
smart.
but it's
They've built them
working
in the
out
right
not too
spots.
bad.
They've put them near restaurants and malls and stuff. The people like the Petro Canadas and stuff that are building them at their gas stations. Well, that's fine. However, most of the ones I've seen so far, the gas station's got nothing really around it to keep you occupied for the 30 or 40 minutes you may be there, right? So
And I know talking with actually one of the owners of the Petro-Canadas, he actually said right now they don't, but he was in the planning stage of getting like a little cafe set up and all that. So trying to make
that would
it
be smart of them,
more
yeah.
friendly. Yeah. So with the short time, has there been any interesting stories or from others, maybe sneaking up on them or whatnot
um,
with your EV?
I yeah, I've had a couple guys come up to the stop sign, and they just look at me and they kind of look at it because there's no noise coming off it idling, and they'll take away from the light, and you give it a quick little push and make them disappear behind you, and they get really upset when for some reason about that. So I've got a guy that's at work that he's got a little BMW 1 Series, and I didn't, there was no racing or anything foolish like that, but he come up next to me on the street, and I just gave it a little push and pulled away, and he was quite surprised at just how well it accelerates away like that.
Nice. Now that with BMW maybe
Yeah,
getting in the game, might give him at least something to
yeah,
be able to compete with you with. uh, awesome. Well, I do thank you so much for your time and really
sure, no
enjoyed
problem.
chatting with you. And you have yourself
Thanks, you
a
too.
great rest of the day. Actually, is there any sort of plugs you want to put? Any sort of
No,
electric vehicle
like I say, the
groups
only
you're
one I
part of
belong
or
to is
anything
just the
before I
Hyundai
let
one
you go?
on Facebook you found me on, and that's really all I
Yep.
stick with. Um I don't know. I guess I don't get involved in that side of it enough. I mean, I joined the group just to try and get a little more about the car
Yep.
and keep track of other owners and stuff. But I know I'll you pull into a charger, and my first interaction was with Audi e-tron drivers. I was at the local Petro Canada charger, and they jumped right out and wanted to talk. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I'll shoot the breeze with you. But my 10-minute charging session I wanted to stay for turned into 25 minutes. Right, that was the problem. So, but
Yeah. Well, it's nice that an Audi person actually
yeah, well, I
wants
mean,
to
the
chat.
e-tron is interesting.
Not,
I mean, it's got some phenomenal charge rates. However, I guess it doesn't quite have near the range they like to advertise sometimes, based on some stuff I've seen. But
yeah.
so, and that is the one thing which is nice, I guess, about the Kona. Everything I've read and people have shared that it's in under normal conditions, it gets about 90% of the advertised range, which is nice to see. So, because that's always.
Yeah, and it all depends how you drive. Like with me, I can get 400 or 500 kilometers even on the highway, but I'll cut it down to 100. I go with no heat, just the heated seats, heated steering wheel. But I'm not your normal person per se.
I can't wait to see what it gets, what it starts doing here in May and June when the weather warms up and you're not running any heat, but just air ventilation and the battery's working in a more optimal condition. It'd be really nice to see what it's going to get.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. And
thanks, you too.
Have yourself a great day.
Okay, bye.
I want to thank Dave again for his time, all his knowledge, and his experiences with the Kona. So I do want to mention, if you want to get in touch with me, I'm at truenorthev@gmail.com. You can search for me on Facebook at True North EV Podcast or Twitter at True North EV Podcast. And I do thank you guys so much for your time that you spent with us. Yeah, any questions, concerns, comments, feel free to send them my way. Thank you.